Hey guys, what's up? Alright, so I know a lot of guys been asking, you know, how do you get the slag off the steel, you know, that bluish mark, that rust mark, whatever, and that's all from heat treat. So what I'm going to do is, I have a couple knives left. I'm going to attempt to show you basically the process of how I go about taking the slag off. And getting it to a nice buff, a nice polish, put the handles on, make the my heat treater is Peter's Heat Treat in Pennsylvania. He does an excellent job. He basically takes the steel, heats it up to its whatever temperature it is, and puts it in a minus 300 degrees cryogenic freeze. So the blades, when they come back, are super hard. So they're really, really tough, really, you know. This blade will last forever, and that's probably where you see that bluish tint on it. I don't know if you could pick up the camera, but that's the heat treat part. So I'm going to finish polishing all these suckers up and get it to you guys as soon as possible. And I know a lot of people have been asking, you know, can you please show me how to fit and finish it, and that's what I'm going to do now. So alright, so I'll film it while I'm working on it, and hopefully you guys will learn something. Alright, basically it's the same thing like when you're making a knife. Alright, you still need your belt, sander, and all that other good stuff. Usually what I start off with is a 60 grit belt, which is used. So a used 60 grit belt will probably be around 100, maybe 120 grit. And then you go from like 120 grit to 220, and then 220 to 400. There's not a lot of different process from making a knife than from cleaning it up. The major difference is that you are no longer trying to take steel off the blade. What you're trying to do is just take all the slag off the blade. Okay, so there's not going to be a lot of pressure on it. There's not going to be a lot of heat and pressure and all that other stuff. So what I try to do is, I have my bucket of water over there. You will see me dip, constantly dipping my blade inside water, because I don't want to heat this up. If you heat it up, you can take the tempering out of the blade. You can take the hardness out of the blade, and that's not what we're trying to do. We're just trying to clean it up. So I will constantly keep the blade cool, and then just keep running it until I find that there's enough of the slag off. I'll show you. Also, I will not be wearing gloves for this process because I want to be able to feel the heat. As soon as I feel that the blade is heating up, I will definitely stop. Alright, so that's another tip for you. He's taking it off. Alright, so I got the majority of the slag off. It's not completely off, alright, but that's okay because I'm going to go through 3 or 4 other grits. The reason I stopped is because I wanted to show you, I don't know if you could see that right there, these blades are inherently dull, and that's the way you got to send them to heat treat. There should be at least, I think, 10 millimeters or something like that of steel left. Very little piece of steel that is left for the beveled edge. And what I do on the 60 grit is I start sharpening that down. I start profiling the blade until I get to the 400 grit, and then that'll be the final sharpen. I don't get to the final sharpen until after all the handles are on and everything else. But trying to sharpen this thing with handles on, or get it to that fine edge with handles on, is a bear. So it's a lot easier to get it done now while you have the 60 grit out, and you'll see that the raw steel cuts a lot faster than hardened steel. Hardened steel is a pain. It's a lot messier. It's a lot harder. The dust is different. The sparks, everything is completely different. You can tell that this knife has been hardened. But that's it. Is that if you still do not have an edge on here, that is ready to be sharpened or factory sharpened, then this is the point where you would do that. Alright, so as you can see, I got most of the knives kind of cleaned up with the 60 or 100 grit. I'm going to move a belt to probably like the 220 range, and I did start to sharpen the edge. Alright, it's not completely sharp, and that's what I want to reiterate to you, is that you don't do the final sharpening until you're completely done. What you're trying to do is take the edge that was a little bit thick that you left for heat treat so it wouldn't warp, and then sharpen it down, and then clean it up. And then finally at the end, you take a nice 220 grit, whatever, and just drag the knife across and be like nice and neat. The other thing you gotta be careful about is the tips. Alright, make sure that you are not filing away the tips when you're doing your grinding. Sometimes you have a tendency, and the reason this happens is because your left hand drag and your right hand drag is different on everybody. It's different the way it's set up. It's different the way you feel that way that day. Believe it or not, I like to grind early in the morning because by the time the lunch time comes or noon, I'm a little bit tired. So if I can get all the grinding when I have the most energy in the day, it actually helps me, because then I don't have to go back and re-grind, and I don't have to be on my feet for another 5 hours grinding. Yeah, it gets a little boring, gets a little tiring, your back starts to ache, so your neck starts to hurt, all that good stuff. So I do my grinding early as I possibly can, not always early in the morning, but as early as I possibly can, and get it out of the way, and then the rest is just fit and finish. And like I said, I'm doing 2 knives. And because when I do handles, I'm going to need one to dry while I'm working on the other one. Same thing with the sheets. I'll have one sheet done, I'll be working on the other one. So it kind of works out good doing 2 at a time. But then again, you have to have 2 knives, 2 orders in the same work. So I'm going to change the belts and get some more things. Alright, so a couple things. I went to a U60 belt to a 120 belt, and then what I did is I went from 120 to 220, and then this is the last final finish. This is what's called a Gator Belt. You can see the grooves in there, give it a lot of air while it's moving. Also, this is, I don't know how to say the name, it's Trizact CF, whatever. Anyway, you can get these on knifemakers.com, anywhere. Just look up Gator Belts and they come in different styles. What you're doing is you're cleaning the blades up. Alright, so this belt is an excellent belt. This is the first time I bought these, I was really amazed. I've actually gone, depending on the type of finish they want on the knife, I've actually gone straight from heat treat to one of those belts. That's how good they are. They have like this sort of groove on there, keeps the air flowing, it doesn't heat it up, and you're able to actually get into the ricasso without damaging it too much. But understand that it is a sanding belt, so if you hit too much on it, it will take off a lot of steel and it will burn the steel, so it is still a sanding belt. Also, notice that I have a Gooseneck Flashlight. This is one of those 36 volt DeWalt, and the reason I keep it is because a lot of times when we're sanding, I could see the light from over my shoulder this way and over my shoulder this way, but I can't see from behind. And that's really what I'm trying to do, because the more light you have on your project, the more you can see the blemishes, the more you can see, okay, so if one side of the edge is this way, but the other side goes like this, then obviously on that side I need to straighten it out. And what I'll wind up doing is I'll wind up actually using the corner of the belt to straighten it out. So I might use it this way instead of using it flat. And that's a good tip. I actually found that from one of the knife making videos. I watch a lot of videos on knife making, and it was a professional, I forget his name, he's from Texas, but excellent guy, he's been in the business for years. And you can use the sides, and that's what this knob is up front. You can pull the belt over a little bit this way or this way and use it to get inside the corners. Just remember though, when you're doing that, anytime you change a belt, whatever you hit on this steel, So if you did all the blade and then you hit the ricasso and then you hit the back end, you have to do that with every single belt, just so you get that smooth sheen that you're looking for. So you can't hit one side with 120 grit and then hit the other side all the way to 400 and forget to do that. I know that's common sense, but maybe not so much on the blade, but maybe on this little piece of this ricasso right here, or maybe the back end, you forget to do that. And then what happens is it looks different. Well, it's going to look different because you have different grind marks going through here. So that's just food for thought right there, but I'm going to get this done. I got 2 blades to do here, so I'm going to use this belt. This is an excellent, excellent belt. Gator Belts. Definitely look them up. Alright guys, this is my buffer from Central Machinery. Harbor Freight has these. This spins at 3,450 RPMs. It is a very, very dangerous machine. It is an 8-inch buffer and it has a 3/4 inch shaft. So if you are a knife maker, you're going to need one of these. I would suggest Harbor Freight has them for 40 bucks. You can't beat this one. It's got dual arms on it. It's long enough. It's a great machine. More than enough power on it. The only thing I would suggest is that it's very, very dangerous. Be very careful with this thing. I've had blades spin out of my hand before, so it's very dangerous. What you never want to do is, if you are buffing, buff up here. Don't ever do that. Don't ever buff with the blade towards you. Always buff underneath the shaft. Okay, if you can, buff this way. Don't buff with the blade pointing up at the wheel, because it can drag it down and it'll go so fast. I don't care how strong you are, it will pull your fingers off. So if you are going to do it, buff with your fingers on the top, not underneath like this holding it, because it can cut your finger off. What you want to do is grab one side of it with your fingers on top, go below this part right here. This is the wheel, okay? If you stay below the shaft, you'll be safe. So if you're buffing below the shaft, if it falls out of your hands, it falls straight down or it goes that way. If it goes that way, that's fine. What you don't want is to buff up here, because if this thing comes back, it's coming right into your gut, and the last thing you want is a 7-inch blade in your gut, and then you have to go to the hospital. But overall, very good machine. You will need some compounds. This is black, there's brown, there's red, there's white, whatever you want to get. The most common that I go with is just black, maybe a little bit of green. That's it. There are different compounds for brass, for steel, for silver, but for metal, the darker the color, and then into the light. So you go dark, you go black, brown, green, and then white is the final if you want a mirror polish. I don't like doing mirror polishes. I just, if it's going to be a utility blade, I just go with, the regular black. Just get all the little burrs out of there, clean it up, done. I don't even go nuts on this. So this is a Sisal wheel. Sisal's going to be the hardest wheel that you can buy for this type of thing, and the way it works is like your car compound. So you put it on rough with this, and then you have a buffing wheel, and the buffing will take it off. So it's very simple. Just load it up. Nice black. Make sure you're wearing glasses. This stuff can slip into your face. Like I said, all you're doing, that's it. Okay, you'll see all that black stuff. That's the compound scratching the wheel out. So after you go through all your compounds, you got to get to the buff wheel. Now that compound Sisal wheel is basically for it's like a buffing compound for your car. Same principle. And then what you do is, this is the cotton wheel. All right, it looks like a Sisal wheel, but it's not. It's mostly made for cotton. And what you're doing is, now you're taking all the stuff off and you're polishing it up. Again, same principles apply. Make sure that you're under the spindle. Okay, this is the model. This is my Grizzly knife blade sander and buffer, so it had an extra arm specifically for this. All right. That's all you're doing. Same principle. Make sure your hands aren't under the blade. Drag it across. You know, if it gets pulled out of your hand, it gets pulled out of your hand. There's nothing you're going to do. You're not that strong. No one's going to be strong enough to hold on to this blade if it gets caught. Like I said, never go up like that. Always have the blade down. Some people like a high mirror polish. I do not. I like a satin polish. And the reason is because these knives are made to be used. And if you got a high mirror polish on there, it's going to get scratched and you're going to see it. Now with 1095, you do have to put some type of finish on it because 1095 doesn't have any properties in it to keep it from rusting. So you have to constantly keep it oiled. So all these blades that are going out, depending on what you're going to use it for, you got to keep it oiled. And if you're not going to keep it shiny, you could paint it. You could put that Duracoat on there. You could do whatever you want. But I find the easiest way to do it is just to keep a light oil coat on there. If you're going to use it for food, then use mineral oil or olive oil. But if you're going to use it for outdoors, you could use any machine oil, knife oil, gun oil, just to keep it lubricated and to keep the rust off. Alright, so there you go. That's a high satin polish right there. Alright, before I attach the handles, a couple things I do. I have to tape up the blade edge because I don't want to get any glue or any crap on there. It just takes it a lot longer to clean up. Some of these handles I pre-made. Somebody was asking me, do you pre-make your handles or do you make them, after heat treat? And the answer to that is both. If I have the material, I might make them before. A lot of these I made before, prior to heat treat, because I was trying to put them up on the website so I can get the website done. So there's no rhyme or reason. You can do it after, you can do it before. It's really up to you. These two I happen to make before, so it speeds up the process now as opposed to me trying to put them all together. All right, a couple things you're going to need. 5-minute epoxy, something to stir it with, and some type of cardboard or paper or whatever you want to use to mix it on. You're going to need some acetone. Acetone is going to be able to take all that stuff off as quickly as possible. You're going to need your clamps. The clamps are going to be able to hold the handle material on there while you are working with it and while it dries. I like both clamps. I like these because they're small and it's a really tight grip. You don't want to squeeze it too hard that you squeeze all the glue out because then it defeats the purpose, but you don't want to leave it too loose that the handle's not touching the metal. So I use a combination of both. Of course, plenty of rags, plenty of things to clean up with. Now, these handles right here are way too smooth to attach anything to, so I rough them up with a Dremel. I just get my Dremel tool and I scratch in here. You can drill holes. I've seen guys that drill holes all the way through their handles. I don't necessarily like that because I think you're lightening up the blade either too much or maybe you're weakening it too much, especially if all of these are drilled, all of these are holes. But you could do that. I've seen sandblast, I've seen semi-holes, whatever it is, you got to rough up this blade. I'm sorry, the handle part, or else the handles itself will not stick to it. All right, so I'm going to do that. I'll show you what it looks like, I'll show you the glue, and then we'll start. Alright guys, so this is the messy part. As you can see, I scratched this up pretty nice. This is just a handle. I used a bunch of different tools, but really the cutting tool kind of digs in pretty well. Like I said, this is just the way I do it. You don't have to do it this way. I know there's about 1,000 people that are going to say, well, you can't do it that. Listen, as long as it's rough and the glue has something to adhere to, it's going to work. So that's what I'm trying to do here. It's not very uniform, but as long as you get around the holes and everything else, that's fine. And what I'm going to do, and this is where it gets messy, is you got your 5-minute epoxy. Make sure you have everything set, ready to go, because this is going to be a pain in the butt, and I can tell you that right now. It's not a lot of fun because it gets very messy very quickly and you have to be quick. So have your acetone open, ready to go. Have your glue, have your handles ready to go. You could wear gloves. I don't really care, but put enough on there. Make that nice and clean like that. Make sure you have your handles ready to go. Alright, do a little mix. It's not a big deal. Make sure you cover every piece holes, pins, whatever. I have the anvil standing by over to my left with my hammer ready to go. I'm trying to keep it off the sides. Just want a nice even coat. If the pins are still in, that's fine. If they're not, you're gonna have to put them in eventually. So I just want a nice even coat. And then I'm gonna stick them on right now, just temporarily, until I get my other piece ready to go. Okay, so that's like that. Get my other piece, spread it on there. You know, some people say, well, you got to put it on both sides. Well, yes and no. If you want to put it on both sides, that's fine. You can put it on the steel, you can put it on the micarta, but I don't find that necessary because it's all going in the same place. Especially if you put enough like I am, it's going to find its way in. Okay? And you slap it on like that. Okay, and then I'm going to go over to the anvil. Alright, slap my pins in. Make sure they go through. Okay. Come back. This is where time is really important. Start wiping all the extra stuff off, much as possible. Alright, now I'm going to start squeezing them together. And this is where all the fun starts. Because now I'm on a timeline. So if I don't get these solid enough, if I don't get these in tight enough, we're going to have a problem. Like I said, you want it tight, but you don't want it so tight that it's actually screwing up, pushing all the glue out. You want the glue in there. And believe me, when this thing settles, you ain't getting this thing off. I don't care how strong you are. I might want to move this over a little bit. Maybe make it a little tighter. Alright guys, so take all these off. Basically it'll look something like this. Alright, so it needs some work. I'm going to sand down these high points right here on the regular belt sander, and then I'm going to do some work with the hand sanding, and then it should be good to go, nice and clean. And then what I'll do is I'll start making Kydex sheets for these knives, and then give it a final buff, and then that's it. So it's not bad. And like I said, you know, what you're really looking for is to make sure the seams line up. Now understand, when you do heat treat these knives, heat treating, when it comes back, it might change the metal a little bit. Also, you know, the knife that, if you're going to pre-make the handles, you know, understand that it might be a little bit different when you put them back on. The pins might not line up. That's all normal stuff. You're always going to have to go back and sand it and then get working on it. Alright, same thing like the grinder, 80 grit. This is 120. I got 60, I got, you know, all the way down to 220. And then what you do is basically, you know, I just took the sharp points off, and then what I'm going to do is just sand it down until it fits comfortably in the hand. I'm not trying to change the level of the handle anymore. I'm just trying to clean it up because, you know, sitting around, getting the glue on it, all that stuff has to come off. As long as the handle's dried, you should be good. Alright guys, this is the Kydex sheet making process. Alright, as you can see, the knife is pretty much done. I got to put an edge on it. This is a little bit of an edge starting, but I didn't finish it yet because I'm going to work with Kydex, and I really don't want to cut myself at all. So the handle's done. Okay, starting to look nice. I'm going to polish it a little bit up when I'm done with everything. You should have your hands relatively clean when working with this stuff. You know, I've been working all day, so my hands are not exactly as clean as can be, but you know, it's the way it is. I got my Kydex press that I made. You can see that right there. It's like a big coffin style. These are, you know, plywood. I did a video on this a while ago. It's got hinges on it. Before it didn't have hinges, but now it does. And then I use my clamps right here to clamp everything down. But first I have to do the layout. I'm going to go with black on this Kydex sheath. Alright, it's pretty simple. It's not hard to do. You just got to lay out your knife to see where you want it. So you will need a couple things. Alright. You will need at least a ruler. And I try to stay at least an inch away. Try to stay at least an inch away from the blade itself, so I have some room to play with, you know. And then you're going to need your razor knife, a couple different tools, just to lay out the square. See if I could zoom in for you a little bit. There you go. This tripod's seen better days. Alright. So, you know, you want the biggest or the largest outside of your edge. You know, you can put a mark there. I like to use my square because my square hits the back edge, because I know it's a straight piece of Kydex. Just run a line. Run a couple lines. This stuff is pretty easy to work with. Once you get into the press process, it is a little bit trying. You just have to be comfortable with it and keep working it. You know, so it is, and then you snap it. Clean the edges up and make two pieces. Okay, one piece on top of the other. Make another line. Make another line, just keep cutting it, cutting it, cutting it. Okay. Relatively simple. Then what you got to do is figure out which is your outside. This is obviously going to be outside because it's textured. This is the shiny side, and it's got writing on the inside. So then what I do is I say, all right, well, if it's going to make a sheath like this, okay, with the stuff inside, what I want to do is sandwich them together like that. Put the knife on top, centered as much as humanly possible. I mean, once this thing is there, you don't want to touch it. Then I have my punch that I use for metal work, and this works really, really well. Let me zoom out for you a little bit. I have my punch for metal work, and that's going to put a divot or a dent where I want to actually use the drill bits. Okay. So I find out this is about right on each side. It doesn't have to be perfect because you're going to have to work with it a little bit, but you want it as centered as possible. You figure the handle, I could cheat a little bit. Put as much handle in there as you want, because I have all this stuff and it's going to get wasted anyway, or I'll make something else with it. And this is just a regular belt loop that I actually purchased from one of the Kydex shops or the knife shops, and it works perfectly as a template. So all I do is I find the center that I want to use my punch, and then you can see two little tiny holes, and then I find the center of that hole, punch, center of the hole, punch, and then I go up this side, and then I go up this side, and that's it, and then I drill the holes. So let me punch all these holes and I'll show you how I do it. So I don't know if you could see that, but there are some divots or little holes or punch marks. See right there, there. And then what I'm going to do is just run it underneath my drill bit, drill press I should say. And just keep going, make all the holes I want. Again, make sure that you have the back piece on there as well. So they have to be facing each other to make a sheath. Otherwise, the holes will be screwed up and you got to do it all over again and you're wasting Kydex. Doesn't take a lot of pressure to get this through. You don't even need a vise or anything. Alright guys, so I got my two pieces back to back, see that? And then what you need to do is you get these little rivets. You can get them in black, you can get them in silver, gold, it doesn't matter. They come in 100 different, some people call them rivets, other people call them grommets. You can get them all on knife kits. Just make sure they're thick enough from here to here to go through the Kydex. Okay, so what you want to do is just feed it through, because this is what actually gets bent around to make the connection, to make it tight. So I'm going to go ahead and fill all these in, and then I have my press, which, by the way, you don't need to get this press. This is a press that's made specifically for grommets, and it comes with different dies, and all you do is you snap this in here like this and press down like that, and it makes a really nice grommet right there. I got it on Amazon. They're a little bit, you know, they're over $100. I think they're like 80, 90, $100, something like that. It's not exactly cheap, but it beats, you could do it with one hand versus using the anvil and die and trying to hammer it down, because usually when you start doing that, you start bashing up the rivets and making a mess of them, and that's not what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to make it as neat as possible, and you know, this allows me to do it with one hand, very minimal stress, just knock it through and you're done. So I'm going to get on with that, and then I'll show you the next step. Alright guys, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my heat gun to heat this plastic up. I have the knife ready and it's available, and I have all my clamps ready to go, so you got to kind of move fast with this stuff. Get a nice heat on the plastic. I didn't cut anything, I didn't trim anything off. With this heat gun, you might have to move it to a different outlet because I kept popping the breaker. This thing pulls a lot of heat, so don't be surprised if you're popping breakers. So what I like to do is, once I get it malleable enough, what I'll do is I'll slip the knife in there, and the heat generated from the blade that I'm heating from this will actually help it to form. So I give it another once over. Heat it up really nice. You know, some guys use hot plates, other guys use toaster ovens. I've used a hot plate and I wound up burning my fingers most of the time, so this works pretty good for me. It's not a science, you got to constantly work at it. There are guys that, I think Philly EDC, he makes gun holsters out of Kydex, and he does have it down to a science, but you know, that's not my business. My business is knives, not sheaths. This is just something so you have, if you want to get a leather sheath, that's fine, but this will hold you off in the meantime. Very easy to work with. Nice Kydex sheath, lasts you a very long time. It's waterproof, you don't have to worry about it. And then what I do is I take this, put this in the center. Not worried about that little piece right there, slam that down. Try to get some leverage as much as possible, and you gotta work fast on this. Originally I had it without the hinges, and what I found out was that it's harder to do with one person. With two people it's very easy, but with one person trying to do sheaths, the hinges actually help out tremendously. So I'll tighten this down as far as it can go, and as you notice I heated up one side, and then what I'll do is I'll go in and heat it up again, and then flip the knife around and do the handle side. And then of course you might have to do some tweaking with gloves or whatever, and do one side, do the other. You might have to heat it a multiple of times, so don't get frustrated with it. That's just how Kydex works. The more you heat it up, the more malleable it becomes, the easier it is, and the better it looks. Alright, this is the final sharpening. Alright guys, this is the final product. Alright, so you see how I put all the handles on. This is, as you can tell, this is probably D-Master 79 and Mitch Meister. These were customers. And these were custom knives that they decided that, you know, they wanted the design, and I built it for them, got it heat treated and all that other good stuff. Alright, just give you a little more. I don't know if you could see that. Let's see if I can get some more light for you. But I'm going to do a review anyway upstairs when it's well lit. But As you can see, the handles are on really nice, fit and finish. All right, I got the semi-polish. The Kydex sheath is done. All right, they fit pretty nice. Okay, it's not going anywhere. Same thing with Kydex sheets. You should know that there are different attachment options. You got the regular belt loop right there. As you can see, it's just a belt loop, and it would probably go into one of the holes. Remember I said this is why I use this as a template when I'm pinning my holes. So if I want to attach any type of other accessory after the fact, you can do that. They also sell what's called tech locks. You can buy these on Amazon. They have the mini version and they have the regular large version. Okay, so there's 3 different options for mounting. Also, I learned this trick from Gavco. Gavco, great people. You can use 550 cord. This one's going to go out. All of them are going to go out with 550 cord. But with this type of setup, I don't know if you could see that, you can use a belt loop this way and this way. Okay, you just put the belt through there if you wanted to have it on that side. Or if you wanted to have it on this side, you put the belt loop through here and here. Okay. Also, with the cross hatching like that, you can also put a belt loop through here and carry it as a scout carry. All right, so there's just extra options. You know, scout carry either side, small at the back, whatever. Again, this came out pretty nice. Okay. Fit and finish, guys.